One of the biggest mistakes landlords make is pricing their rental emotionally instead of strategically. And the problem is both overpricing and underpricing can cost you money. Price it too high, your property sits vacant. Price it too low, you leave money on the table. So today I'm going to break down how to properly price your rental property, what landlords should actually be comparing, and why vacancy can sometimes cost you far more than lowering the rent slightly. And for those that don't know, I also put together a free tenant placement checklist that walks landlords through entire placement process step by step, because pricing is directly tied to the quality of tenants you attract. Hello, I'm Gabby Vitas, owner of NextGen Real Estate and Property Management, helping landlords in Chicagoland navigate the rental scene. And honestly, pricing strategy is one of the most misunderstood parts of being a landlord, because most landlords think, I'll just look at Zillow or what other people are asking. But that's not enough. The first thing you need to understand is this. You need to compare apples to apples. And what I mean by that is not all properties are equal, even if they're in the same neighborhood. A unit with updated kitchens, parking, in-unit laundry, included utilities, new flooring, central air is not directly comparable to an outdated unit without these features. And this is where landlords accidentally overprice their rentals. They compare their property to the nicest unit on the market without realistically evaluating their own conditions and amenities. Now, here's another huge mistake. Landlords focus too much on what is currently active on the market instead of what has actually rented. This one is the biggest gem I can give you. Just because a property is listed for a certain amount does not mean it rented for that amount. In fact, sometimes properties sit for 30 days, 60 days, even longer, because they were overpriced from the very beginning. So what matters more is what actually rented, how quickly it rented, and what features it included. This gives you real market data, not wishful thinking. Now let's talk about the utilities and amenities, because this changes pricing significantly. You cannot compare property with utilities included to a property where the tenants pay separate utility bills without adjusting expectations. The same goes for, like I mentioned to you before, parking, laundry, storage, outdoor space, HOA amenities, internet, pet policies. All of these things impact value. For example, a unit with free parking in Chicago, well, that matters. In-unit laundry, huge. Pet-friendly, that can increase demand significantly. So when you're running comps, make sure you're comparing similar situations. Now let's talk about the real estate seasons, because the market changes throughout the year. There are definitely faster renting seasons and slower renting seasons. Spring and summer are typically stronger. Families want to move before the school year. Weather is better. Activities increases. Winter typically slower, especially around holidays, snow season, end of the year transitions. And this matters because pricing strategy should adapt to the market. If you're entering a slower season, sometimes aggressive pricing is smarter than holding out, because vacancy costs money. A lot of money. And I think many landlords underestimate this. When a property sits vacant, you're paying utilities, you're paying maintenance, you're carrying the mortgage, and you're generating zero income. So let's say your rent target is $2,000 and the market is soft. Sometimes lowering rent by even $100 can save you from another month of vacancy. And financially, that often makes far more sense, because losing one full month of rent trying to win an extra $100 per month usually does not math correctly. Quick example, if you lower the rent by $100, that's only $1,200 difference over an entire year. But if your property sits vacant for another month, you may lose $2,000 in rent, plus utilities, plus carrying costs. And here's another thing landlords forget. Tenants are smart. If your unit is $25, $50, or even $100 cheaper than similar properties, they notice that immediately. And psychologically, people love feeling like they found value. Personally, I often like staying right at market or even slightly below market. Sometimes it's just even $25 lower. Why? because I value fast turnaround time. A fast, strong placement reduces vacancy, creates more urgency, increases showing activity, and often gives you better applicant options. And honestly, within 1 year, that small pricing difference is minimal. But the speed and the stability you gain, that is just huge. Now let's talk about another major pricing mistake. Pricing based on emotion. This happens constantly. Landlords say, but I renovated the kitchen, or but I spent so much money on upgrades. And while upgrades absolutely matter, the market still determines value. You cannot force the market to pay a number simply because you want a certain return. The market always wins, and emotional pricing usually leads to longer vacancies, multiple price reductions, frustrations, and weaker applicants over time. Because here's another thing. The longer a property sits, the more people start wondering, what's wrong with it? Fresh listings create excitement. Stale listings create hesitation. That's why pricing correctly from the beginning matters so much. Now let's talk briefly about the tenant quality, because pricing impacts that too. Many landlords assume higher rent means better tenants. Well, not always. Sometimes overpriced units attract desperate applicants trying to stretch beyond their means. You want qualified tenants, stable rent, and long-term stability, not just the highest number possible on paper. And that is something I actually go much deeper into in my Landlord Shield course, because pricing strategy is directly tied to vacancy, tenant quality, cash flow, and long-term profitability. And honestly, many landlords focus on maximizing rent instead of maximizing overall performance. The goal is not what's the absolute highest number I can get. The goal is what pricing strategy creates the best overall outcome. That includes speed, stability, tenant quality, and reduced turnover. And check out my free checklist. It's practical, easy to follow, and it walks you through the same type of systems we use in real life to find perfect tenants. Link in the description below. Now let's bring it all together. To price your rental correctly, compare apples to apples, study what actually rented, adjust for utilities and amenities, pay attention to seasonality, understand vacancy costs, and stay realistic about the market. Because one of the most expensive mistakes landlords make is chasing an extra few dollars while losing weeks or months of income. Sometimes the smarter move is slightly lower rent, faster placement, better tenant, less vacancy. That usually creates better long-term results. And if you're in Chicagoland area and you're looking for help with tenant placement or property management, we're here to help. Because at the end of the day, the right pricing strategy doesn't just fill a vacancy, it protects your profits. Thanks for watching, and as always, where's your future?